Hello and welcome back to My Mom's Basement, presented by 3Chi and Barstool Sports. It is Robbie Fox, Clem, and if you're not watching on YouTube, this might be a surprise to you. It's Jose Youngs. The youngsters are going wild.
Oh, Professor.
What's up, guys?
We had to get Jose in the basement because Marvel made a fuck ton of announcements at San Diego Comic-Con. Like just announcement after announcement after announcement. A lot of really cool ones. Some that I was lukewarm about. Some that I was fired up about. But there's so many that we don't know about that we were like, I mean, we would be doing the My Mom's Basement listeners a disservice not getting Jose on this episode.
And the best part about it is Jose will tell us which ones we should be more excited about and maybe pump the brakes. He also, I went into Thor, Love and Thunder, knowing that the big C word was going to come out, which was very appreciated, by the way. That was like, I don't need to get blindsided that Jane Foster had cancer. Jose got me ready for this. Stuff like that. Jose is going to have us ready. He's going to take all this information and make it a nice bite size for all you guys.
I'm going to do my best. When the announcements were happening, it was like during the UFC fight week, so I wasn't as on top of it as it was happening. And then when Robbie asked me to do this, obviously I was 100% in to come back to the basement, and then I researched it, and I was thinking they probably announced the rest of the year, maybe first quarter next year. And then I was just like, Jesus Christ, they've announced basically 2 phases of the MCU. I'm just like, all right,
They're like, these are the movies that we're putting out when your kids are going to be around.
Seriously. So I'm just like, I looked at it, I'm like, all right, I know all of these people. So if anyone is listening or watching this and they're actual experts on some of these characters, I apologize if I miss anything because there is a lot to go through.
It's almost like Kevin Feige has an entire whiteboard of stuff that he just has everything lined up.
There's
true. So much stuff.
That's true.
The whiteboard exists. If people are watching on YouTube and they're like, what the hell? Where's all Jose's comics? He's down in Texas covering UFC 277 because he's like the real MMA reporter on this podcast.
I do my best.
Yeah. All right. Let's get right into it. So they come out, they announce, this new saga is called the Multiverse Saga. Makes sense if we're naming things. The last one is the Infinity Saga. And then they showed a new trailer for She-Hulk, which I think looks okay to good right now. Not over the moon about how the trailer looks, but it ends with an appearance of Charlie Cox's Daredevil. He flips in and he's wearing a yellow and red suit, kind of like the classic Daredevil getup. Pretty cool. Do Daredevil and She-Hulk have a relationship in the comics?
I mean, they do in the sense that they're both lawyers. Obviously, She-Hulk is so that's kind of where there's obviously been crossovers, as any Marvel heroes normally do. Some obviously more than others. I'm sure we're gonna have to talk more about some real random ones that I think are gonna happen in the MCU. But they're both lawyers, so they've tangled both in and out of the courtroom. I don't think there's any sort of relationship that I remember like a romantic relationship. She-Hulk is obviously has done stuff with Star Fox and some weird stuff with the Juggernaut and so on and so forth. And Daredevil's more of a Elektra, Black Widow type individual. But yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Do you like She-Hulk as a hero? Is she well written as a character?
When it was She-Hulk Attorney at Law, the comic book.
That's what this is called. Yeah.
That's what this is, yeah.
So that I very much liked her. So back in the day when they were coming out with these we call them floppies or single issues or backers, whatever you want to call them, and Marvel was really good at there would be arcs. The Dark Phoenix saga or Frank Miller's Wolverine and so on and so forth. Those weren't standalone. There was X-Men issue, so on and so forth. And then you'd have to buy 7 straight X-Men to get the full arc. People were like, well, I want just that story. I don't want to have to read all of the X-Men. So She-Hulk was originally really one of the original heroes that was getting her own graphic novels, collected editions. They were only 60, 90 pages, and they were $5.95, $10. So she's been one of the OGs of the graphic novel world in terms of collecting, similar to Death of Wonder Man. I think was one of the first graphic novels that I can remember actually coming out, and that was, from what I've been told, one of the influences that got George R.R. Martin to create Game of Thrones, because Wonder Man died, a hero died, so he's like, oh, we can kill heroes now. Watch this. I'm just going to kill everybody. So that one was also very fast. Obviously, if you're really into Thanos and Lady Death and everything, that was obviously a really interesting one. But She-Hulk, I'm a big fan of her. I'm fourth wall breaking is hit or miss for me. Like I'm not a fan of how Deadpool does it, but I like how the She-Hulk comic books at her peak, she knew she was in a comic book. So she would like talk to the readers and she would like come out of the panels or like rip the page and like come out and like speak to it. So in terms of like writing, fantastic. One of my favorites.
Okay, that makes me a little more excited, especially there's rumors that like Kevin Feige might cameo in She-Hulk as Kevin Feige.
And the writers would frequently cameo in the comic book. Like she would speak to the writers and be like, what are we doing here, guys? Or like the artist would like draw something and she'd be like, all right, I guess I'm doing this now. So it wouldn't surprise me if the directors, the producers, and everyone showed up in the She-Hulk show because that's how the comic books were.
Maybe she's gonna poke fun at her own CGI. Everyone's
I hope so.
Right now,
that would be super interesting. Yeah.
The next announcement.
We talked about this too, Bob, with her. Like in the past, just the different dynamics that make it a little more realistic. The whole thing about like, oh, I'm living in New York City and you're going to have to pay insurance for superhero insurance because your apartment's going to get destroyed once every 5 years. Her lawyering and having to deal with different villains and stuff like that. That is a cool thing that kind of brings it to real life, which happens in The Boys. Breaking news here for anyone that hasn't seen on Twitter. I started The Boys. I'm a season and a half in. It is so fucking good. I am so mad at myself.
Jose hates it.
He
hasn't seen the show. Listen, he hasn't seen the show. He hates the comic, though.
Yeah. Not a fan of the comic.
Man.
Yeah. I'm not a fan.
We might have to do a whole episode on The Boys one day with Jose and break down what he hates about the comic.
Sure. And then and I'm not one of those guys that hates it for no reason. I have read every single issue of The Boys. Because I got like halfway through and I'm like, you know what? I don't like this, but I'm not going to be a clown that just hates it for no reason.
I'll be interested to see how, because I don't know everyone that I know who I follow, I imagine has just seen the TV show. I'd love to see how many other people who have read it feel about the show. So we'll definitely, I'll leave it at that. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't want to get Jose upset. We're in a good place here.
People like it.
I personally, I could already tell I'm going to be bonking myself a lot. I was in like the teenage years when I started reading comics, and She-Hulk she was drawn perfectly for a young kid with a lot of hormones going through. So this will be very interesting to see how that goes with me. And then again, this show and any other show where they may not feel, they don't know how much pull it's going to have, throw me Wong, throw me Daredevil. That's what these shows have to be, especially the Disney Plus. I think that kind of gets the juices flowing now that we have all these characters that we have to introduce. It's like, guys, you don't have to make whole movies for them, but get everyone interacting with each other. So you're building that universe. And that was actually the one question I had about her. Is she like, she's not Bruce Banner level strong? It doesn't seem she's not as big, but she's still like stronger than your,
she is supremely powerful. Plus she doesn't lose her mind like when Bruce does when he changed into the Hulk. She's just still, I think Jennifer is her name if I remember correctly. I haven't read it. She keeps her like identity and she doesn't have to flip back and forth. So there's like she'll go into the courtroom green and like 6'6". Like she doesn't like she'll spend like months as She-Hulk just like ready to go. She doesn't have to flip back and forth. And she does play a semi-integral part in at least one issue of Avengers Disassembled. When like all of the everything bad is happening to the Avengers, and that was really the reset button for the Marvel comic book universe. She like oddly enough goes into a Hulk rage, which she never does. Like she loses. So all of a sudden she's like screaming She-Hulk smacked, and she just becomes like the Hulk type rage, and I think she kills Vision. But Vision is it might be Vision, but Vision is not himself either. So then like it's like a whole thing. Avengers, like I said, Avengers Assembled is like the most important story arc of like the last 30 years, and like she plays an integral part of the one issue.
Well, speaking of people that may not be themselves, Secret Invasion is the next announcement.
Man.
This I'm very excited for, because it follows Nick Fury and Talos, Mendelsohn's character, hunting evil scrolls. They showed footage from it at Hall H. It's said to be a darker, on-the-run political thriller, and the cast is stacked. Samuel L. Jackson, Ben Mendelsohn, Martin Freeman, Emilia Clarke, Olivia Colman, Colby Smulders, Don Cheadle. This thing is going to be like every episode we're getting cameos.
Who's Emilia Clarke playing?
It's not said yet.
Interesting.
So is the Secret Invasion arc a Nick Fury thing?
So Okay.
Or are they changing that up for the MCU?
So we're gonna do. It's hard to. Oh man. So there
Oh
are.
man, that's what I've gotten out of this announcement. Oh man, like put that in quotes 3 times for the fucking movie poster. Jose Young. Oh man.
Yeah, we had. It's okay. So there, we've talked about it before. There's like multiple. Like I'm sure we're gonna talk about it later on because like one of the movies, like the big movie, is called Secret Wars. There is like multiple Secret Wars storylines. Like the one. Obviously, the really popular one is the one where all the heroes go to like another built world with Beyonder, and you get the black suit Spider-Man, and that's where Spider-Woman is introduced. Kang is in it, and all that kind of stuff. But there is another Secret War with Nick. I've talked about it on the show a few times, where like Nick Fury gets all like the grounded heroes like Daredevil, Wolverine, Spider-Man, Captain America, Luke Cage, and they like invade Latveria. They get their mind wiped. Eventually, someone comes back for vengeance, and they don't know why, and they're trying to piece it together. At the end of that, Wolverine kills Nick Fury in a fit of rage. Turns out it's not Nick Fury, it's a robot, and then Nick Fury, they don't know where Nick Fury is. He's kind of gone in hiding. During the Secret Invasion with the Skrulls, which we're going to have to circle back to when we talk about Echo, because Echo kind of plays a really important part of that as well. When we get Secret Wars, which is basically no one trusts anyone because you could be a Skrull. And Skrulls obviously can take like shapeshift and everything. And in this, there's like this big battle in the middle of New York between like the Skrull army and the heroes. And this is when Nick Fury emerges. He comes back, and it's been like 4, 5, 6 years real time, like in the comic, like in our world, not just comic book world. He comes back with his like teenage hero group. I can't remember what they're called, but it's all like heroes in training. That they're all SHIELD agents, they're SHIELD members, and he's basically like, he shows up and everyone's like, what the hell, where did Nick Fury come from? And his like team of kid heroes is a well-oiled machine. They're just like bang, 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 bang. They take him out and then they disappear again. So it's like Nick Fury, that's how Nick Fury comes back into the fold, is during Secret Invasion, and then like Secret Invasion was so much fun. It started with Echo, when Echo killed Elektra, in quotes. We'll have to circle back to it when we get to Echo. She killed Elektra, and then when you kill a Skrull that's not in Skrull shape, they divert back into their Skrull form. So she kills Elektra, and then all of a sudden Elektra turns back into a Skrull, and everyone's like, "What the fuck is that?"
It's like a changeling from Attack of the Clones.
Exactly. So everyone's like, what the hell is that? And then it's like people kind of forget about it, and then it kind of pops back up again, and then people don't really know who's a Skrull and who's not. Turns out Spider-Woman, Jessica Drew, is also like the Queen Skrull. And then there's like the big battle. Norman Osborn kills the Queen Skrull, the Green Goblin, and then eventually becomes leader of the Avengers, which was fun too. But there is a really fascinating scene where they land in the Savage Land, which is like the land that
got teased recently.
In Doctor Strange, they showed it like a split second. So they land in the Savage Land, and there's a spaceship, and it lands, and heroes come out. Like superheroes emerge from the spaceship, but some of the heroes are already on Earth, and all of the heroes are wearing their outfits, their costumes from like the 80s. So now and then like that's how the issue ends. So like Luke Cage still has his afro and his chain. And Wolverine still has like the long ears, and Mockingbird is alive all of a sudden, because Mockingbird at this point, who's Clint Barton's wife or girlfriend, was Hawkeye's, had died in the comic book. So now people are wondering, were the heroes that we have been reading for the last 20 years, were they Skrulls the whole time? And were the real heroes being held captive on another planet? It was a huge bomb in the comic, like, holy cow, this is nuts. And then it's like the battle. Turns out it was all a lie. And the heroes that were on Earth were always the heroes. But some of the heroes, obviously, like Spider-Woman, had been a Skrull for a long time. We didn't know where the real Spider-Woman was. So Secret Invasion is a 10 out of 10 story arc. It really, really, it was a lot of fun. Wow. It was a lot of fun.
I can't wait for that show. And that show is fairly recent. It comes out spring 2023. So we don't have to wait too long for that compared to the other stuff. Speaking of things that we're not going to have to wait too long for, February 17th, 2023, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, featuring the debut of Kang the Conqueror. We've seen He Who Remains, Jonathan Majors, playing like a Kang variant. This is Kang. They showed the trailer. He's narrating it. His first line to Ant-Man, I think he's like, "Oh, you're an Avenger.
Correct.
I killed you before?" And it's like, oh, shit, that's a cold line from Kang the Conqueror. Is Quantumania this is a question I'm going to ask about a bunch of this. Is that a comic storyline, like a famous
So
Ant-Man comic
it's
storyline?
Ant-Man and Kang aren't really like, they don't like, Kang is everyone's villain. He's not like, of course he's tangled with Ant-Man, but not exclusively. I don't know if this is I don't know what it's going to be based off of. When you say like it's a variant of Kang and then you get the real Kang in the comic books, that is called Kang Prime. I think I tweeted about it. Like, there is a council of Kangs, like the council of Ricks and Rick and Morty. There is one. Well, eventually it is wiped out by 3 specific Kings, Kang Prime and 2 others, because Marvel kind of wrote themselves into a corner, and they're like, oh, we got to figure something out. So they just kind of cleaned house. Because for Kang, I'll talk about it like real quickly. Kang is a fascinating hero, or villain, I should say, because he has been like multiple villains throughout time. He was Ramatut, which was like an Egyptian guy. He was Immortus, Kid Immortus. He was Iron Lad, of course. Scarlet Centurion. Like, he's been a lot of these villains, and they were established villains that were later retconned into being variants of Kang a lot of the times, because in this world, they talked about it a little bit when in the last Avengers, one of the last 2 Avengers movies, when Bruce Banner as the Hulk goes back to talk to, he tries to get the Time Stone. And then Tilda Swinton's care, the Ancient One, like draws the line, and he goes, if I pluck this, that my timeline still goes without the Time Stone, and yours can be saved. So basically, Kang, when he goes back in time and does anything, that starts an alternate timeline. So, and then that timeline has its own Kang, but also the timeline that he left from has their own Kang. So the more he messes around with the multiverse, the more alternate timelines he is creating, which is why eventually there's like hundreds of Kangs out and about. And that's what the Council of Kangs come from, because he keeps accidentally, well, not even accidentally, he just keeps creating these timelines, and eventually Marvel was like, we got to figure something out, and they just kind of cleaned house. But yeah, it was way too complicated for a while, and they kind of wrote themselves in a lot. Like Immortus, the villain, for years, for decades, was basically a way to describe it was Kang's final form. He is the final form of Kang the Conqueror. And he was always trying to kill Kangs because he doesn't want one to usurp him as like the most powerful Kang. Eventually that's also retcons, because Kang, like, keep writing themselves into corners with this guy. So, but yeah, I'm very excited. There's also one, I don't know what it is, because even like the more recent one, Kang's last really good run I remember was this comic book called Original Sin, where Captain America gets the Time Stone, and he goes in the future, I think like the 40th century, whatever, and he meets Kang, Immortus, and Iron Lad together, which, like, they all hate each other, and they're all variants of Kang. And Captain America's like, why are you working together? This is strange. Because Captain America was trying to stop the Illuminati, which is like Doctor Strange, Iron Man. We've talked about that. They're basically kind of cleaning up the multiverse by destroying like worlds and everything that are like just too much. And Captain America's like, well, life is life, we got to stop that. So he gets the time stone to like hunt down the Illuminati as like the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. And the 3, like Kang, Immortus, and Iron Lad, are like, well, you can't do that because you're messing with the time stream again. So it's just like, Kang is so complicated because they write these big overarching stories, and it's like great for the time, and then when it's over, they're like, crap, now we have like all this new stuff. Yeah, it's a lot. And then like Ravonna Renslayer has like died and come back to life like so many times. It's like a whole thing. It is a whole thing.
This movie,
it almost sounds like when the WWF, when they used to have these crazy storylines, and then it's like, oh, Vince McMahon was behind it all along, and he's the bad guy. It seems like that's their Kang.
And Kang, you can bring back a lot of characters from like there's one, I think it's Game of Galaxies is what it's called, where Kang and the Grandmaster, I think his name, I can't remember if it's the Grandmaster or the Collector, one of those two. They play a game where the Grandmaster creates the squad. There's this hero group called the Squadron Supreme, which is like the Marvel's Justice League. It's not the Avengers. Like, they're like corny and everything like that. And then there's the Squadron Supreme and Squadron Sinister, I think, which is the antithesis of the Squadron Supreme. So basically the prize is if Kang wins his game, he gets the ability of life or death. Which means he can bring back Ravonna. But because he's like a clown, at the end, he hates the Avengers so much that he kills the Avengers instead of bringing back Ravonna Renslayer, and then the Avengers come back to life anyway. It's so silly. It's so silly. He does, and then there's like the Celestial Madonna storyline where he like actually does get control of time, and it's everything he wanted, and he tries to like go back in time and bring back Ravonna again. Like it always goes back to Ravonna coming back, and eventually she comes back as Revelation anyway. And then the universe is destroyed. Kang is a complicated character.
This movie is also going to feature the debut in the MCU of fan favorite villain MODOK. He was briefly in the trailer. Yeah. They said he was very serious looking, very like robotic looking. I don't know if he'll look like he has a face in the comics and whatnot, but
that's going to be tough because this guy's a weird looking dude. Look him up if you guys haven't looked him up. MODOK, because I don't know how the fuck they're going to pull this one off in live action.
He's a big head.
Yeah. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the final chapter for this Guardians team. Depressing that this is the final chapter because that makes me think maybe some Guardians are going to go out on this one. Hopefully they get some happy endings. Guardians 3 footage was shown. This really is the end for the team. It ended with a finale shot of the Guardians, but Rocket wasn't there because in the trailer, Rocket has been kidnapped by the High Evolutionary, his creator in the MCU. So Adam Warlock also was in the trailer briefly. He'll make his debut in this. And then they had the High Evolutionary character come out in costume, which I always love when they do that at Comic-Con. They've had Tom Hiddleston do it as Loki and stuff. It's such a corny thing, but like fans always go wild for it.
I am very intrigued by the High Evolutionary. Like I get why they chose the High Evolutionary, and I think it's more to introduce Adam Warlock than actually make him this big baddie, because like Kang and the High Evolutionary are very similar in the sense that they're more powerful than they look, and like obviously Kang is obsessed with time and going through time streams and everything. The High Evolutionary is, spoiler alert, obsessed with evolution. So he's a guy named Herbert Wyndham who like before we get into that guy, like you guys know who Nathaniel Estes is. That's Mr. Sinister from the X-Men.
I'm reading his Marvel Wiki as you say this, and you're reading the Marvel Wiki to me without even looking at it. I'm reading this. Mr. Sinister's coming into this because as an X-Men guy, this is exciting.
So Mr. Sinister is, of course, also obsessed with evolution, but he was really more obsessed with like Cyclops and Jean Grey's kid, because that would be like the ultimate form of evolution. So he's like mutations and evolution and all this kind of stuff. So years ago he did a bunch of research, and like because obviously Mr. Sinister is super old, like older than he looks. Years later, Herbert Wyndham is a college student and he's reading into it, and he's obviously also obsessed with evolution, and he creates like this machine that can expedite evolution. Eventually, I believe, I don't remember what college he was from, it was like MIT or Oxford or some fancy school. He gets expelled and he joins Jonathan Drew, who is, if that last name rings a bell, that's Jessica Drew's dad, Spider-Woman. Eventually, he becomes Spider-Woman. And they're working on this land with a bunch of like uranium or something like that, which is like obviously highly radioactive, but it's like helping their research. Eventually, Jessica Drew gets sick. So Jonathan Drew leaves and he brings in this guy. I can't remember his name, but he can turn into, I think he can either turn into a werewolf or he knows people that can turn to werewolves. And eventually he becomes Werewolf by Night's dad, who will eventually become in the MCU, if I remember correctly too. So
it's October.
Correct. So eventually he also teams up with this guy called Miles Warren, I think is his actual real name. And he becomes the Jackal, which is like one of the more underappreciated Spider-Man villains. He was a really big deal in the 90s and 80s. He was the one that hired Punisher to kill Spider-Man. And so Punisher's debut in the comic book was based on a Jackal comic book. The Jackal's also the one that was like kind of the guy that started that stupid clone saga that took like 10 years to finish in the 90s in the comic book with like Ben Reilly and Scarlet Spider and everything. So he's not used almost at all in like any MCU cartoon, anything, but he's great. At this point, the High Evolutionary also creates that big pink suit because it like protects him from uranium, and the silver also protects him from all the freaking werewolves that are just out and about for whatever reason. He creates the Ani-Men, which is like obviously like bipedal, like he expedites evolution with animals. So like, what talking bipedal animal do we know exists in the MCU? So I think that's what they're going to have to do. Obviously, he also, and then it all ties back into, again, Scarlet Witch, because she's the most important hero in Marvel the last 30, 40 years. The mountain that they're working on is like a tomb or something of Chthon, who we talked about in the last Doctor Strange one, who's like the one that needs Scarlet Witch to break free out of his dimension. Also, that mountain from the Doctor Strange movie, the Wundagore castle, is where he. Oh my God! Like High Evolutionary, dude. I keep all of this is like coming back into my head where I'm like, golly, he really has just touched like every single hero. So Magneto and his wife, freaking Magneto. Of course, it's Magneto. Magneto and his wife. Magneto and his wife. I can't remember his wife's name at the top of my head. They like obviously escaped the concentration camps during World War II, and then she flees from Magneto because like he scares everyone because he's Magneto. Eventually, for whatever reason, I don't remember why or how or whoever, she freaking stumbles upon Wundagore Mountain and meets the High Evolutionary and his like bipedal cow creature thing, and Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver born, and then like he takes them away. The High Evolutionary like takes them away, and like I can't remember what he does with them, but eventually it's like during the AVX arc from like the mid 2000s, which is Avengers, which is X-Men. It turns out that was all a lie, and he was actually just experimenting on kids the whole time. So the High Evolutionary ties into Magneto, he ties into Chthon, he ties into Scarlet Witch, he turns into Rocket, he turns into it's Mr. Sinister, but more importantly, Adam Warlock was basically introduced as the comic book to like by High Evolutionary. High Evolutionary creates this other Earth called Counter Earth in the comic books, and it's inhabited by highly evolved creatures. So like basically like a world of like talking animals that can, stand on their hind legs. It's a highly evolved society, and it spins around our moon as well, but it's on the other side. So it's always 180 degrees away from prime Earth. So it's just a big circle. There's this creature called Man Beast, who's basically just like their version of Satan. And he's the big baddie that's trying to like take over Counter Earth. And High Evolutionary finds this egg in space, which we saw, I think, in one of the Guardians of the Galaxies.
Guardians 2, yeah.
Yep.
And he opens it up, and it's this individual called Him, H-I-M. It doesn't have a name yet. High Evolutionary gives him the name Adam Warlock and gives him the Soul Stone to go fight Man Beast. Obviously, we know the Soul Stone is part of the Infinity Gauntlet. He obviously wins. Adam Warlock becomes like his own hero with the Infinity Watch, and we will talk about Adam Warlock a lot when those movies come out. But I think High Evolutionary is just
do
around.
A full like.
I've been waiting.
Podcast.
He's great. Because then you get to go into Magus and Kang and Doom and everything. It's great. But the High Evolutionary, I hope in the show is the reason for mutants. I would hope that like the expedited evolution leads to mutants, and Wanda and maybe Quicksilver are like the original mutants. Like he created them, not based on experiments, but like he mutated their genes. I know for a long time I wanted it to be House of M, and mutants have existed already, but Wanda just like wipes our memories. But once they announced High Evolutionary, I thought like, well, this has to be it. Like he's the reason. High Evolutionary is powerful. He's not just a guy that messes around with science. Like he's fought Galactus and like held his own. He's fought in Thanos. He's fought like the Thanos in the movie. Like obviously all the MCU movies, all the heroes are like highly devolved. Like their power is not the same level as the comic books because that would be way too much. The High Evolutionary in the comic books would eat Thanos from the MCU. Like he's that powerful because he can evolve himself just like on the spot. He's like, oh, I need superpowers, and he just gives himself superpowers. Like High Evolutionary is supremely powerful.
I have to admit, I saw him do the Comic-Con thing, and it's corny, it's weird, and I was like, I don't know if this guy's gonna do anything for me. Jose, again, he just convinced me he did it, and Bob's fucking the way he described it, he's like, it's heartbreaking, sad shit with Rocket. This is James Gunn's last Guardians, which I did not know, so that kind of broke my heart. And I'm a Guardians guy, Jose. X-Men are my true love as a kid, but as an old man here, Guardians are my crew just because my kids like it. We love watching it together, and there's great music. It's a lot of fun. If the Guardians are going to die out, like literally and figuratively, and maybe I don't consider Guardians without James Gunn the true Guardians. If this is really the last go round, let their legacy be the thing that got the seeds planted for the X-Men. I could live with that. I could live with basically all the Guardians dying except for Baby Groot. I will not accept Baby Groot dying. I'm letting it be known right now.
That's a good point. Yeah.
GameTime is a new ticketing app that makes it easier than ever to score last-minute tickets on deals to sports, concerts, and shows, and they guarantee the lowest price. 2022 has been a massive concert year, and with so many tours going on, GameTime is reporting they are seeing some of the biggest last-minute ticket deals ever. Tickets for artists like Halsey as low as $9, Machine Gun Kelly $8, Backstreet Boys $20, Jack White $25, and all of these artists are under 40. Rufus Du Sol, Kenny Chesney, The Killers, Zach Brown Band, and more. Make sure you use the GameTime app this summer to get the best deals on your favorite artists. And their purchase process is so easy, it just takes 2 seconds and 2 taps. Once you buy your tickets, they're delivered directly to your phone, no printer needed, and the app also allows you to share tickets with friends via text so you can get into the game seamlessly. Skip the hassle, enjoy the moment, go to GameTime now. You'll get $20 off your first purchase if you download the app, go to the account tab, create a login, and then redeem the code MMB. $20 off your first purchase, terms apply. Download GameTime now regardless. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. The next trailer we get to talk about is a trailer that was released for everybody, and I believe it might be the best trailer Marvel ever put out, truly. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, November 11th of this year. It's the next MCU movie that's going to come out. Unbelievably emotional, obviously due to the real-life circumstances with Chadwick Boseman, but the use of music in this, the use of cinematography, I believe the cinematographer for this last did Loki, the television show, so you know it's going to be shot great. The music, Ludwig Göransson once again, Ryan Coogler, one of the best directors in the game. This is going to feel like an event. This is going to be one of the biggest movies of all time. I was looking at the box office. Black Panther currently sits at 13 all time. Wow. I think this is going to get right up there with it. I mean, obviously, this is going to be kind of like a tribute to Chadwick Boseman in a way. That's what the trailer felt like. It's going to introduce Atlantis. It looks awesome. I don't know. What more is there to say about it?
It looks great. Right? Namor, Submariner, who is like a lot of people consider him an anti-hero or a villain or a hero. I don't really think he's any of that. He's just a guy trying to protect his land. It makes sense that they're introducing him with Black Panther because the two of them in the comic books are so similar in the sense that they're very territorial. They don't really care about, like, at the end of the day, intergalactic peace is great, but they care. They're both rulers of their own land. So to Submariner, Atlantis' survival is always first, and same as Black Panther with Wakanda. They've had a couple battles. I really, really, really hope they introduce or plant seeds for Doctor Doom in this show. I've seen there's a scene where there's soldiers going through Wakanda looking for something, and I think if I remember correctly, there is a comic book where Doom tricks Submariner or something like that to kind of invade something like that to get technology, because Wakanda is obviously one of the more advanced cities in the world. So I really hope this is where they plant the seeds for that. Maybe not a full-fledged reveal here's Doctor Doom, but some sort of Easter egg, because I think that would make a lot of sense. I'm also a huge fan of Submariner looking a lot more Aztec. I think that was
cool design. I love his people too, like the people of Atlantis, how they have the masks that are filled with water when they're on the surface. Which is a bubble of water on their face. That look really cool.
I absolutely love it. It's I've always thought of Submariner as how he looks in the comic books, just a white dude with a black crew cut and everything. But I love everything about the Aztec culture aesthetically, so I'm glad that was a creative choice. Submariner is also, again, here's one for you, Clem. Submariner was one of the original 3 heroes in Marvel. It was Captain America, the original Human Torch, who was an android, and Submariner all debuted in the 40s during World War II. Those were the 3. Obviously, this Fantastic Four got their version of Human Torch. Captain America and Submariner are now still doing their thing, but eventually, Submariner is retconned to be one of the original mutants with the X-Men. So there is a really funny scene in House of M where they're teaching mutant schools, and they're who's the first mutant, and no one say Jesus because we can't prove that to be accurate. I'm that's hilarious, but everyone's it's Submariner was eventually was the OG mutant, who eventually there is that storyline I said a little bit ago, AVX, Avengers was X-Men, is the Phoenix Force comes back and is split between 6 or 7 mutants, and Submariner is one of them. And when one of them is defeated, the others absorb their powers, and eventually Cyclops is the last one standing, and he starts to become corrupted. So Submariner is a mutant, which is another thing that we could, bring in our X-Men finally to the MCU.
And shout out to my guy Jose. He's giving me my little X-Men breadcrumbs. He does his comic book YouTubes where he just kind of goes in, bullshits, has the whole wall of comics behind him, and people just ask questions. And I said, dude, what's going on with the X-Men these days? I gotta know. So for anyone that wants to just catch up, like I said, Jose says he's still trying to figure out like the must reads. Go on the YouTube and you basically just have a Q&A with the fucking professor. It's beautiful. It's like after hours. We could like go after school and meet with the teacher. That's what it's like, man. So definitely check it out. You tweet out the links whenever you do it. It's great.
I do my best.
The next show is Echo coming summer 2023. This is one that I'm going to need you to kind of sell me on, because from what we saw in Hawkeye, I was like, she was a fine character for that show, but I didn't look at that and think like, oh, she needs her own show.
So it's interesting you said that, because that's pretty much what Echo was for a long time. Like, she's great as like a supporting character that pops in now and then, but like she was super directionless in the comic books for a long time. So I think your analysis of that character is spot on. She has like a really okay origin story. Like, her dad died and Kingpin convinced him it was like Daredevil, but it turns out that it was actually Kingpin that killed him. She actually, there's a issue, I think it was Brian Michael Bendis wrote it, I can't remember, but she shoots Kingpin in the face and Kingpin goes blind for a bit. But that
happens in Hawkeye at the end of Hawkeye.
Boom, there you go.
Kingpin is rumored to wear an eye patch in this show.
There you go. She has the ability, obviously, to copy things that she sees. So, like, I think in the comic book, she I don't know if this is in the show, but she's at like this concert recital, and this guy plays this Beethoven symphony, and she just like looks at it and then just does it. Like so basically, she has the ability to copy like an Echo. She does this, but she is super directionless for a while, and then Brian Michael Bendis wrote this story where she goes on like this vision quest. And then she decides that she's not a hero, she's not a villain, she's not an anti-hero, she's just going to help out. Eventually, she becomes Ronin, which is who we see Hawkeye's character, and she joins the New Avengers. And the New Avengers, which was the Avengers post Avengers Disassembled, was awesome. It was awesome. It was Captain America, Iron Man, Spider-Man, Wolverine, Echo, Sentry, Spider-Woman, and I might be forgetting someone, but it was so good. But eventually Echo is asked to infiltrate the criminal world of Japan, because backpedal. There's this storyline. It starts, the New Avengers start with this arc called I think it's called Breakout, where Electro is hired by someone to go to like their Rikers Islands, like their Arkham Asylum, the prison for supervillains, and he shuts the power off and they all escape. This is where Sentry is introduced, because he's being held there, and Sentry kills Carnage. He flies him up into space and rips him in half. Eventually Electro is caught, this and that, but Silver Samurai escapes. Silver Samurai is an X-Men villain who has a lot of ties to Wolverine, is ushered back to Japan, because Japan's criminal underworld is like there's like a civil war, and if he goes back he can unify it. But it actually turns out that the Hand, which is like the secret agency of like crazy mystical ninjas that is in the Daredevil Netflix show, was actually behind it, because if they control Silver Samurai, who unifies the criminal underworld, they control the criminal underworld. Captain America approaches Daredevil, I asked, and goes, well, you've had more experience with the Hand than any of us, we got to send you in. Daredevil, this is right at the end of the original Civil War arc, so Daredevil is fighting crime illegally. He's not registered. He's like, well, I can't do that, like people will go after me, but I know a guy. And so he calls up Echo. Echo goes and kind of infiltrates and everything like that. And it turns out that the Hand is working with Hydra. So it's Hydra and the Hand together. Wolverine is eventually brainwashed, but he's saved. Echo, there's a scene so Hydra and the Hand have twofold. They can bring people back to life, and they can create like super ninja type things. So their way of battling is they'll send like 1,000 ninja at you at once, or one ultimate powerful one. Like, those are their two things. If you read the Frank Miller Wolverine, you've seen the panels of like Wolverine fighting like 1,000 ninja, and he's struggling. Echo cleans house. It's like her versus like 1,000 ninja. She just like doesn't break a sweat. Like, she like doesn't hold back and just wipes the floor with everyone. Eventually, the Avengers fight Hydra, and it is actually really interesting because you don't really get that dynamic. It's usually 1 versus 1,000,000, but the Avengers versus Hydra, and like Luke Cage. Oh, Luke Cage is the other Avenger. I forgot. Yeah, so all those guys are in it. Eventually, Lady Hydra's arrested, and Elektra takes over. the criminal underworld thing. Eventually, Elektra fights Echo, and Elektra kills her, but then she resurrects her because it's the Hand and it's comic books and it's silly. The Avengers eventually save her again, and they help her deal with her like the resurrection drugs kind of like mess with you, like the Lazarus pit in the DC world. And then she kills Elektra. She stabs her in the chest like she did, like Bullseye did to her. And what happens when she kills Elektra? That's
turns
right.
into a scroll.
Boom. She turns into a scroll. Right. And that is the very first, that is like the genesis of the Secret Invasion, was Echo killing Elektra, and then they were like, what the hell is this? Eventually, she moves to LA and teams up with Moon Knight. Moon Knight is like, at this point, is like, it's the end of the Lemire run I was telling you guys about, where he thinks like, it's fair. It's okay. It's okay. The
trails off towards the end.
It does, because at this point, Moon Knight has his personalities are becoming too much. Like at one point, he thinks he's Wolverine, and he thinks he's Spider-Man. So it's just a little much. And then she gets the Phoenix Force at one point, which is also just so dumb. Like they just have nothing to do. They had, after she kills Elektra, they had this point in time where they could have made Echo the guy, and they just didn't land it. So hopefully the show makes up for it.
I like that thing with the hand. It's like the thing, would you rather face 1,000 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck? Like that's what I'm figuring with them. And I'll be honest, this is why you guys listen to the professor. I was so out on this show, and Robbie, I had it. You said it perfectly in the blog. You go, remember Echo from Hawkeye, Kingsman's niece? She's the deaf one. No, well, she's got her own show too. And like I was, my one note on this was basically I want Kingpin and Daredevil to do to this show what Mandalorian did for the Book of Boba Fett, where it's like you guys just take over and let it run. Apparently Echo's good though, according to Jose, and that's the gospel.
The Echo from New Avengers was awesome, but there were like, she peaked there. Like what she's doing now is not interesting. And I really, really hope that the show corrects that, because they, like I said, she had all the ability to be like this next awesome Daredevil type hero, and they just did not land it.
I want to see that scene where she fights like 1,000 ninjas.
Oh, it's so cool.
If it's like Matrix 2, where it's Keanu versus all the Agent Smiths, like I want to see that in the show.
Yeah, and I hope we get more Hydra. Yeah.
The next show is Loki season 2. Obviously, season 1 was a huge hit. It was me and Clem's favorite Disney Plus show. Looking forward to season 2. There's not much about it. I've seen like some on-set photos. So Sylvie, I keep calling her Sophie. Sylvie's got like a crazy new haircut. Tom Hiddleston's hair looks kind of short, to be honest, kind of like my length now. So Loki's kind of back to short hair. Yeah, I'm excited for this, but who knows where they go really, because the end of the first season was kind of a mind fuck.
Yeah, I'm sure Kang is going to be involved again.
Hopefully, yeah. That would be best. November 3rd, 2023. Mahershala Ali is Blade. This is going to be pretty sick. Now, Jose, I believe you've said that Dracula is a Blade villain.
Yes.
Is he like the Blade villain? Could they do Dracula here? Because I'd like to see that.
Yeah, if they do Blade, that Dracula has to be involved. If they don't, if they don't want to use Dracula for whatever reason, like if they're still trying to do that dark universe thing with like Warner Brothers or whoever's doing it, they can just do some big bad vampire in general. But Dracula is his Joker for sure.
Blade versus Dracula sounds sick to me, and I want this to be like I said in the blog. I hope they push the PG-13 boundaries. I assume Marvel won't go rated R.
They should.
If they're doing it for any movie, like make the goriest vampire movie ever, and put it out as Blade. That would blow people's minds. Yeah, it really would. And I know at the end of Eternals, it's Mahershala Ali's voice that gives Kit Harington's character, like the Black Knight, his sword, which was weird because they don't do anything in the comic books. Like they're part of they're part of MI13, I think, which MI12, whatever, which is like a British secret paranormal investigator thing. Kind of like it's basically like it's like if you guys have read Hellboy, there's like the Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense. It's just that, but in the Marvel world, and they were like part of it, but like there's no
Like they have swords, I guess, is why they're.
Does Moon Knight and Blade work together? I don't know
Yeah,
why in my mind
yeah.
that makes sense.
That was my question.
Yeah, the Moon Knight does. Yeah, Moon Knight a lot more than freaking Black Knight. Like that would be much easier
because they're cool to see him pop up in this. Then
they would, because they do fight vampires together at one point. And Blade, if we get Blade, it means we might be getting the Midnight Suns, which I've talked about them at nauseum. I've talked to them about them at nauseum on your show, so I don't want to have to rehash it. But I
mentioned
really,
them
really
on. I did a mailbag episode recently, and someone said like, "What Marvel, arc would you like to see put in the movies?" And I said, "I think the Midnight Sun is just for Jose."
Oh my god! like 10-year-old Jose would just be all over it. Like if we get, because obviously we've heard the rumors of Ghost Rider, which I'm just like just give it to me already. And then like we get Blade, we can get the Night Stalkers, which is Hannibal Drake or Hannibal King and Frank Drake. Morbius is technically a movie, so like he would have Doctor Strange is already there.
It is technically a movie.
Just pull the trigger. And like, isn't there like a Darkhold show coming or something?
I think there were rumors about it. I don't know if it's been confirmed yet, but there are going to be apparently tons of announcements next month at D23 as well that they held back, which is crazy that they have more announcements.
Seriously. So if they announce Darkhold, Midnight Suns are around the corner.
I mean, it actually then it ties into the next one, because this might be what they like put the Darkhold show into. Agatha is getting her own show. Agatha, Coven of Chaos, Winter 2023. I know she was never like the biggest character in the comics, right? Very different than she was in WandaVision. She was like an old lady. She's
super old lady. Like she was the one that was like helping Wanda like control her powers and this and that. She dies in Avengers Disassembled. They think she's like, it's the whole thing like in WandaVision when she creates that fake world and Agatha's like the babysitter, but then it turns out that she was dead the whole time and Doctor Strange comes to try and help out. So I'm sure Agatha's show is because she was so popular from WandaVision. Yeah. So I don't
Catherine Hahn too, probably like such a good comedic actress they want to work with. I hope they don't do this as like a flashback Salem witch trial show. We saw that as a flashback in WandaVision, and I could see them going there. But like, I like moving forward in the MCU. I feel like going back, even with a movie like Black Widow would have been so much more well received if it was like a continuation, if it was next after Civil War or something.
That's a good point. That is a good point. Yeah,
I mean, going backwards when everyone wants like, oh, what's the next thing? Who's the next cameo? Who's the next thing? It's like, let's go back for a sec. It's like,
it's tough going backwards when you already see what's coming. You know, and plus, like, unless they go back in time and like all of a sudden, like, if they do the Salem witch trials and like Kang is there and like young Wolverine is there because Wolverine is
like you gotta go crazy with it. Yeah,
correct.
You go back.
You'd have to do something like that. You'd have to.
Another show that's coming out in 2023. We're getting so many shows next year. Ironheart does make her first appearance in the Wakanda Forever trailer. Her and Shuri appear to be a team together. We've seen some looks at her armor through like concept art and a Funko Pop that's revealed it. It looks pretty cool. It looks very thrown together, and
it is because it is. So Brian Michael Bendis created her. She from an article I read years ago, it might have even been in Time or the New York Times or whatever. He was working on a TV show about a young girl who was coming from like an awful part of the world and then like rose above it and went to college and graduated and become like a scientist, because in Brian Michael Bendis's eyes and his words, that is like a real life superhero, is like someone emerging. So his TV show wasn't made, so he wrote this instead, where an MIT student recreates his own, and her first real like they acknowledged her existence is Tony Stark is like, oh, an MIT student made my armor without an arc reactor. And it was like a throwaway line. Like, I'm like, whatever, didn't think about it. Years later, they show it like she's a 15-year-old genius who's developed an iron suit with no arc reactor and with no involvement of Tony Stark whatsoever. And this was really when, I don't know if you guys were reading comic books at the time, Robbie, I'm sure if you went to a comic store,
probably no.
So I'm sure you guys may have seen at some point their tagline was all new, all different. And they were really, so this is when Miles Morales became Spider-Man, Jane Foster became Thor, Spider-Gwen, Amadeus Cho, the Asian Hulk, Sam Alexander became the new Nova. So they were really trying new things. The problem with all of those characters is they were people replacing that superhero to carry on so like Miles Morales became Spider-Man. Like Jane Foster just picked up Mjolnir. Amadeus Cho absorbed the essence of the Hulk. Sam Alexander got his own helmet, but Ironheart was her own hero that did her own thing with no involvement of Tony Stark. Eventually, he gives her the blessing to carry on the Iron Man name, but he's not like, I'll take you under my wing and do everything. She did this all on her own. And the fact that she was like a minority, like an African-American woman, is never referenced at all. It's not like, oh, we have a new black hero. It's, oh, we have a new Iron Man. And it was great. It was awesome because, like you said, it looks very thrown together, and that's because it was. She like just kind of pieced together this armor, and then a lot of it she would be in the back of the issues, or like it would be like a subplot of a story of her like testing the suit, and that was fun.
I love suit testing scenes. The one in the original Iron Man is a classic.
I think it's going to be similar. So like she would just go out in like the middle of nowhere and just like fly, and then like try to fight crime, but she like didn't quite know how. So I think and at the time, people were so mad at this storyline because they're like, you're trying to whitewash Iron Man and trying to change it. And then like, people are like, it's not, she's not Iron Man. She's Ironheart. And it's her own, she's her own thing. Of that time of the all new, all different, she was the best. So I really hope the show works out.
I went back to a blog because I was like, I feel like I blogged this back in 2016, and I wrote, I guess the like headline said the new Iron Man is a black woman,
and that they messed up. That was such a stupid headline.
I said I was like a dog chasing its own tail, trying just to like picture it, but then I just think of all the like Marvel super fans like Champ Kind and Anchorman, and they're going, it's Iron Man, not Iron Lady. You know, it's just such stupid nonsense.
It was the same. It was the same reaction. Remember that headline of like Superman ended up being gay like this year, but it wasn't Clark Kent. It was Superman's son that had taken over as Superman. I'm like, read the goddamn book.
And like none of the people complaining about that care about the character arc of Superman's son. You know, like they don't even realize it's a new character.
R.I.P. my dog Tony Stark. I just had to say that. Jose, when that LaShawn McCoy tweet went out, A, did that spoil it for you, the end game? And B, what are your thoughts on LaShawn McCoy and the NFL? Like, who's your team? I just found out you were a diehard Red Sox fan recently on one of our pods.
Oh, who's my football team? This is going to be weird. I have been a diehard Packers fan my entire life.
I knew that because you gave PT a shirt, right?
Yeah, I gave PT a shirt. So the story is, when I was 4, my dad let me stay up past 9 o'clock for the first time to watch the first quarter of Monday Night Football because I wanted to hear the song. Because before, remember the old Monday Night Football song? So I'd watch the song and then I'd go to bed. But my dad let me stay up, and it was Vikings Packers. And I was like, I don't know who either of these teams are. And my mom walked in and goes, I like purple. Go Vikings. I'm like, girls team. So I chose the Packers. And it's been that way ever since. I love it.
And you didn't get spoiled like little Sean McCoy, Iron Man.
Because Iron Man is he's a guy that dies frequently. So I would assume he was
that guy's out of there.
Yeah. I was shocked that he made it to the second movie. I was like, come on, dog.
Saying that Iron Man eventually gives her the blessing in the comics makes me think maybe by the end of this show, she does something, saves the day, and like Pepper Potts comes in and gives the blessing like on his behalf or something like that.
Yeah, or War Machine or someone.
I don't want Pepper Potts. I want Happy. Fuck. I do not want either rewrite Pepper. Get Gwyneth Paltrow the fuck out of the MCU. She doesn't want to be in the MCU. She doesn't have to be in the MCU. Get a nice fat check and be fucking around all the A-listers. I want people to forget Gwyneth Paltrow is just a chick who sells vagina candles. That's what I want to be known as to the
the worst company name ever, too. Goop.
Yeah.
The next show, people are fired up for. I would say this was the most fired up announcement that Marvel made, other than the 2 Avengers movies. Daredevil, Born Again.
Say it again, Robbie.
Spring 2024.
Say it again.
It's kind of the 4th season, kind of a reboot. I guess it's not really clear. The cast is back from the Daredevil TV show on Netflix. Born Again being one of the most famous comic book arcs ever. I think it's safe to say.
Most famous. One of the most so if I had to put together my personal 5 best arcs in just comic books, not Marvel, I could put Born Again number 1. I could.
Wow.
In all, it is peak Frank Miller. It is peak Brian Mazzucchello, who's the artist. Brian Mazzucchello obviously wrote. He drew Batman Year One. too, and he has his own comic book called the Stereopolyps, which I have tattooed on my leg. He is a demigod of art. He is a demigod of art. But Born Again is the Daredevil storyline. It is. If you have to read one, it's that. Obviously, the one with Elektra dying and all the Frank Miller's run is great. This is the one, and to the point where I think in 2001, Marvel did their list of 100 greatest single issues ever. It was by fan voting, and the top 10 was a lot of like debuts, so like Amazing Fantasy issue, whatever, where Spider-Man debuts, X-Men 1, Fantastic Four 1. It was a lot of the giant size X-Men that introduced Wolverine and Storm and Firestorm and all those kind of guys. So a lot of it was that. There were very few stories that were like not origin stories in the top 10, top 25. There were obviously some outliers, like because after, like, people forget that when they revealed Wolverine's origin story with the comic book Origin, that was kind of like the big mystery. What is Wolverine's actual backstory? After they did that in the early 2000s, it was Gambit. Like, what is Gambit's origin story? No one knew. Gambit's origin story was also in like the top 25 or whatever. That was fascinating because Magneto was involved and Mr. Sinister and Sabretooth and so on and so forth. But the first issue, and I can't remember it was like Daredevil, like number 300, 200, whatever. The first issue of the Born Again one is in the top 10. Because it is perfect. It is everything bad is happening to Matt Murdock, not Daredevil. Matt Murdock. Matt Murdock's life is falling apart because of the Kingpin. If people watch man, it's tough because I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but Daredevil's girlfriend in the show, I think her name is Karen Page. Karen Page. If you like the show Daredevil and you don't want this spoiled, probably pause it and then ends this after, because Karen eventually in the show is this really powerful female character. She's a lawyer. She's working with Matt Murdock and Foggy and everything, and she's great and she's super popular, and everyone is like, oh, who she's going to end up with. Obviously in the comic book she ends up with Matt Murdock, but eventually she becomes like addicted to drugs, like hard drugs, like heroin and like meth and everything, and she like flees. And she ends up in like South America, and she knows who Daredevil is and trades Matt Murdock's secret identity for like drugs. She goes, give me the heroin and I'll tell you who Daredevil is. Eventually, that makes its way to Kingpin, and Kingpin finds out that Matt Murdock is Daredevil. So Kingpin systematically ruins Matt Murdock's life by getting him like his like he can no longer practice law. His apartment blows up. Everything goes bad. And he's trying to ruin Matt Murdock's life. Eventually, Matt Murdock emerges victorious. He climbs himself out of this. And this is where you meet Matt Murdock's mom too, where he's like, they find him like unconscious and he's like laying there and he remembers his mom because his mom eventually becomes a nun. And like a nun is bringing him back to life, and he like remembers her smell and touch.
The cover of the comic has like a church window with a nun in it.
Yeah. Well, it's Daredevil, and so eventually Karen comes back, and she apologizes to Matt, and Matt forgives her, and this and that. And then I don't know if Nuke was in any of the shows, the guy with the painted American flag on his face.
Not sure.
So he was introduced in this arc too, where he's like a super soldier in the sense of like Captain America became this good guy in World War II, and Nuke was just like a crazy Vietnam vet that just takes a bunch of drugs and has like a tattoo of an American flag on his face and just goes ballistic in like New York, and Daredevil needs to fight him. It is the best Daredevil storyline ever. Eventually that leads him again.
So they've never done it though on the show or anything like that.
People keep saying season 3 was Born Again, but I've not seen season 3. I gave up on that Daredevil show halfway through season 2 because I don't like what they did with Stick and Elektra. But if it's called Born Again, they have to, like, this is it.
I was thinking, like, are they taking the name because it's so perfect that the Daredevil show is Born Again?
That would be so silly. I get what you're saying, but that would be silly.
But it would be like you're pulling it away from the fans that want it so bad.
It would be like if you came out with a Batman comic book called Dark Knight Returns and it had nothing to do with the Dark Knight Returns. It would be that. Like, it would make sense, like, aesthetically for the title, but you can't. Like a movie called All-Star Superman, Dark Knight Returns, like the Wolverine. Like, you can't do that and not have the story. It has to be this story. This is the best Marvel comic book story ever in my mind. It is
Jesus
the
Christ.
best.
If people
then
haven't
eventually-
gone to Amazon or you're actually go to your local comic book store and get
Yes.
Born Again, like by now, I mean, what more can he do you to sell on?
Buy Born Again and buy another one and then send it to Comic Books Kids so then they
Yeah,
can read it too.
Exactly.
We're plugging
Exactly. And eventually it comes back around to like there's this. I think Kevin Smith actually wrote it. Now that I think about it, like
he did write
it's called Guardian Devil, which is
Yeah.
a Mysterio tries to do the same thing to Matt Murdock, but there's like a kid involved and Black
He
Widow
wrote
is
his
there.
own Mysterio actually there. Like
Yeah.
he redid the origin.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that actually. So
Yeah.
Mysterio's like dying of cancer and he tries to like ruin Daredevil's life, but it doesn't work out. But again, if you made it this far, skip if you don't want to hear this. Karen Page is killed by Bullseye by throwing a billy club through her chest. Eventually, after that, he starts dating Echo. So like that's how you introduce Echo. Because Karen is made to believe that she has AIDS because of her years of using needles and everything. Again, Daredevil is a heavy hero.
Heavy, yeah. Wow. Oh
So
my
which
God.
is
AIDS,
why
heroin,
when I
addiction,
was
meth.
when I was watching the Daredevil season 1, I'm like, and Karen was like this really popular character. I'm like, bro, you don't know what's if don't get too attached, people, because it is a heavy story, man. It is heavy.
Karen, why did you do that, Karen? That's all I can do. So I have to go back and watch Jared. We've had a bunch of people. I have to go back and rewatch.
Sure.
We're gonna have to. We're absolutely.
I was a huge fan of season 1, and then season 2 was obviously really popular. I didn't like what they did to Elektra and Stick. They just made them too whiny, and like there's 2 of my favorite characters ever, and I'm like, I can't watch this anymore. But season 1 was great. Yeah, season 1 was so good.
And it sounds like Elektra's really fucking important in this whole potential phase here.
So. Elektra is, it has to be. Elektra's also like Matt Murdock's Catwoman. Like they are destined for each other.
And that's not Jennifer Garner, right? That's the movie's Jennifer Garner.
Yeah,
I feel like
yeah.
I love Jennifer Garner.
Jennifer Garner's Elektra was with Ben Affleck's Daredevil.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. I forgot Ben Affleck. Okay.
Captain America: New World Order. Captain America 4 in theaters May 3rd, 2024. Sam Wilson starring as Captain America. I tweeted, will we see Steve Rogers, old as fuck Steve Rogers, back? I say probably.
On the moon.
Hope so.
Yeah, maybe on the moon. The thing that worries me as a Cap fan, the director Julius Onah directed The Cloverfield Paradox, which is like one of my least favorite movies ever because I love first Cloverfield. I love 10 Cloverfield Lane. I was fired up for it, and I thought it was unbelievably bad. But I've heard he made a movie after that called Loose that people love. So, who knows? And then it's going to be written by the people that wrote Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'd love to see some more Isaiah Bradley shit, maybe some flashbacks, open the movie with like an Isaiah Bradley, World War II scene or whatever war he was in. Was it World War II?
Yeah.
Might have been. I would love to see stuff like that. I thought that was some of the best stuff in the show itself. And of course, I want to see Winter Soldier in this, like featured heavily.
Yeah. I was not a fan of what they did to Bucky for a bit in the comic books when they brought him back, but he's grown on me. There's specifically in the Wolverine arc when they kind of go into the backstory of Wolverine and Bucky and all those guys during World War II and Vietnam and everything. But yeah, I hope we get more Winter Soldier. I hope we get the Winter Soldier from the comic book, like bad.
I am concerned that it's kind of like with the Ironheart, where I guess it's a different name. Don't cancel me if I just have a hard time calling him Captain America. I grew up at a time. I sound like an old man. I grew up at a time.
Where's this going?
Yeah, this is not going the way you think it's going. I promise you that.
Wow.
I never had to deal with heroes transitioning to someone else taking the mantle of another hero. Yeah. It's very hard to me to be like, that's Cyclops, even though it's not the Cyclops I grew up with, or it's not Scott Summers. It's another Cyclops. It's going to be very hard for me to say that's not Falcon. It's just going to be very hard for me to say that. I'm just letting everyone know now.
And just wait until you if you read the there's comic books where the Punisher took over Captain America. It's nuts, man.
That doesn't seem like it works though.
Like he did it
the button-up guy Punisher.
No, he did it on his he did it on his own after Captain America died in the comic books. He's like,
Captain America's estate fucking C&D'd him. Took that off.
Yeah. This is when they were trying to like I said, they were trying to like rebrand a lot of heroes. Like eventually freaking Frank Castle becomes the Cosmic Ghost Rider too. It's just a whole thing.
The next one. July 26th, 2023, or was this? I might have meant to write 2024. I think that's the 2024 movie. Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
I was told Thunderbolts are kind of Marvel's Suicide Squad. Is that a way to put them?
That is like a rudimentary way to say it, and that's not a knock. That's like if you're trying to explain it, it's a group of villains that does blah blah blah. Like sort of. They weren't originally.
Did they predate the Suicide Squad?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Suicide Squad actually goes back further than you would expect, I feel like.
Yeah, it does. So like
Deadpool and stuff, and yeah.
same as Guardians. Like Guardians goes back way farther than people think. But I don't think I think Suicide Squad came first. They would have to, because there's this arc in the Marvel comic books called The Heroes Reborn, where all of the heroes are just like sucked into another dimension. So there's just like no superheroes. So the Thunderbolts pick up the slack. And then it turns out they're all like villains that are like fighting crime. And it turns out that our boy Baron Zemo is the puppet master behind them. So it's like they're not really heroes. That's like one iteration of the Thunderbolts. Eventually, like he's
got to be back in the movie.
He would have to be,
because he's in the actor so much. And yeah.
Exactly. So I would assume that they're going to do that variation of the Thunderbolts, which is fine. It wasn't my favorite. My favorite was this one is more Suicide Squad-ish. It's where Norman Osborn leads a team of heroes or villains, and it's and each one is supposed to like be an iteration of an Avenger, essentially. That's how it was written. So like Norman Osborn is supposed to be like the Iron Man, because he's like the scientist, and then there's like Venom, who's like Spider-Man. There's Bullseye. There's Moonstone, who's like their version of the female Captain Marvel. There's Penance, who I think was Cannonball, if I remember. Cannonball, I think it was Cannonball, was the original Civil War arc when the superhero registration form started, because there was this reality show of teenage superheroes that were fighting crime, and they were fighting crime in front of a school, and the supervillain blew himself up and killed everyone. Like the kids and everything. Killed the kids and everything.
Comics.
Correct. So and that started the Superhero Registration Act, because heroes were unchecked and all those kids died. It was like,
well, they kind of did the same thing in a weird way in the movie, with like the parent goes to Tony Stark, like, hey, Wanda killed my fucking kid, dude.
Exactly. But this one, it was like Cannonball's. I think it was Cannonball. I can't remember. He eventually becomes Penance, he looks crazy. He has like a suit and it has like spikes on it, and there's like 600 spikes, because that represents a person that died in the blast. And then there's like 40 bigger spikes, because those are the kids that died at the school. And then there's like Radioactive Man and Songbird, and it's like, yeah. Oh, look, if whoever's on this, look up Penance comic books. He is the most metal looking supervillain or superhero. He is wild to look at.
Oh, his name's Robbie.
Yeah.
Robbie Baldwin.
Yep.
Spells it with an IE like me.
Yeah.
Oh,
he's
super
metal.
Share him on the screen, man. Robbie. You know to share in StreamYard?
I
gotta see this guy.
Can you share him?
All right. So how do I spell it? What's the thing?
Penance.
Penance. Robbie.
I can put him on the screen if you
Baldwin.
share him.
Let's see. Oh yeah, this guy's pretty. Are you looking at the one where he has the fucking
suit with the spikes?
Yeah, he looks
everywhere.
Like
yeah.
Let me see if I can actually get the picture here. This is why you guys have to subscribe to the YouTube. You can get
the
little visual journey along with us.
While we're figuring that out, I don't know who's going to be I don't know which Thunderbolt is going to, which iteration. I assume it's going to be the Baron Zemo one. I assume they're going to name it Thunderbolts after. There you go. Yeah, that guy is dope.
Come on,
that dude is
badass.
Dope. He's such a good hero. Like, he was aesthetically one of the cooler introductions, but I don't know who's going to be involved. I would imagine like Baron Zemo is going to be behind it. Thunderbolt Ross was probably supposed to be the leader.
I was thinking that they'll probably dedicate this to him, and they'll say that the team was like named in his honor. Maybe he founded them as his last thing. There are a couple like John Walker you could probably bring back in.
Well, Thunderbolt Ross was
they're bringing in She-Hulk. So
Thunderbolt Ross was played by Sam Elliott in the Eric Bana Hulk.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't hate him if they brought him back, especially if we're doing stupid multiverse stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly. I would assume it would be Abomination, U.S. Agent. U.S. Agent is in Falcon Winter Soldier, correct? Yelena would probably be a good one from Black Widow. Pretty much any like what's her name? Oh man,
it's our girl Valentina. Elaine is just dropping the bag on everyone and recruiting them.
Is she gonna? Do you think that's the team she's putting together?
It might be because Julia Louis-Dreyfus's characters recruited her, so I bet Julia Louis-Dreyfus is like this Thunderbolt Ross-esque
the Nick
person.
Fury.
Something like that.
As you were saying, Nick Fury like made his return with a team of like young SHIELD agents. I thought it would be badass if like in Secret Wars or one of these big movies down the line, Nick Fury just shows up and the Young Avengers are like put together, and people are like, great. What the fuck? Like he put together the Young Avengers behind our back. That would be cool to see. It
would be great, and especially if they did it like during that scene when he comes out of like this wormhole thing with it's like a boom tube thing. He like emerges and he's like blah blah blah, take point, blah blah blah, come around the back, formation F, and they're just like whoosh, and they just take out the Skrulls and then they just disappear. I'm just like, damn man, badass.
The next one I'm so excited for. It's Fantastic Four, November 8th, 2024. We've never seen like a great Fantastic Four on screen. The original Fantastic Four, I think, gets more flack than it deserves. I think for the time, it's like 2004. It's a fairly fun summer blockbuster that, you know, it didn't disparage the characters like the 2015 one did necessarily. It's left without a director right now. John Watts, who did the last 3 Spider-Man movies with Tom Holland, was supposed to do this, but I think he was kind of like tired of doing big blockbuster stuff, and he was like, I just need a break for a bit. I would love them to hire Brad Bird, who did The Incredibles and also did Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, I think it was. Which is like
that'd be good.
Such a good Mission Impossible. He made The Incredibles. He already made a good Fantastic Four movie. Just let him like plug and play and make this one as well.
Oh, I mean, I haven't even thought about it, but yeah, that'd be killer. I hope this movie is good. I really do. I'm not like the biggest.
Want it to be good.
I'm not the biggest Fantastic Four fan. I like them when they pop up in other heroes' stories, and they do have some fascinating arcs. Doom is their only like Mole Man is not an interesting villain to me, but like Dr. Doom is like the guy. He's one of like my favorite villains ever. So I hope this is good. I really do, and I hope they're not. Like if they do Ultimate Fantastic Four was interesting because Mr. Fantastic became a bad guy at the end. And the Thing, Ben Grimm's like Rocky Armor event ended up being like some sort of egg incubator type thing. And he emerged with like energy skin. And it was stupid. It was stupid.
Don't do that.
Yeah, it was back when, and then like the Ultimatum Cataclysm like situation came that like sucked in the Ultimate Universe into the 615 or whatever it is, and they brought in like evil Mr. Fantastic. It's very dumb.
I don't think they're making anyone evil before Secret Wars. I think we got to get the team up of Fantastic Four, Avengers, and possibly some X-Men if they bring it in by that time.
And I hope Doom is the bad guy because he's I don't want he'd have to be the bad guy, which means you'd have to introduce Latveria and honestly, of every show you mentioned and every movie, Doom could be involved in every single one because he is he is on level with Strange in terms of the mystic arts. He's on the same level of Iron Man and Mr. Fantastic in terms of science. He's incredibly skilled at hand-to-hand combat. Like he is the guy. He is like the end boss of all end bosses.
I can't wait to see who they cast as Doom in the MCU. I'm like very excited for that casting announcement because you know they're gonna like nail that one. They usually nail the castings, but Doom, that's an important one.
Yeah,
it has to be.
My one note for this was I'm really excited to see the villain, and I really hope it's Dr. Doom. And I do like that we have the Fantastic Four, and I feel like with the way they interact, like I feel like Dak brings the Silver Surfer. That's an easy way to get him involved down the road. And I know that movie was a fucking abomination. That was not like the first
second
movie.
one wasn't.
But the
casting made Galactus a cloud.
Yeah, you'd have to make because with Fantastic Four comes Galactus and Silver Surfer and the Watcher and everything you've said so far. Because Silver Surfer is the main character of the Infinity War story in the comic books. So I'm like, so when they were doing the Infinity War they did the Infinity War without Adam Warlock and without Silver Surfer. That's like doing Harry Potter without Harry Potter and Ron Weasley. It just didn't. It was just like baffling to me. They made it work, but it's like there's a lot that comes.
They gave the Hulk one of the Silver Surfer scenes, like panel for panel, basically when he goes into the sanctum and he's like he's coming.
They gave Silver Surfer's scene in Ragnarok to Hulk 2. So in Ragnarok,
really?
in Planet Hulk, which is the one that sets the scene for World War Hulk, when Hulk is in the gladiator pit and they're like, we have the undefeated champion, the Silver Scar, and then it opens up and it's Silver Surfer and his shield is his surfboard, and he has a giant fucking mace, and they just like fight hand to hand, but he has like the chip that controls him, and eventually Hulk just beats him so badly that his chip breaks and Silver Surfer frees everyone and then flies off. I'm like, bro, just like, so when I saw Hulk with like the gladiator armor in like a poster, I'm like, are they going to give a Silver Surfer? And they did not.
And then the final two, go ahead, Glenn.
No, I feel like the dude who, the director who bailed on this, he probably was like, oh, I'm fucking done dealing with, all this kind of nonsense. He doesn't realize, like, dude, with Marvel, it's not dealing with all the Sony dickheads. You're just dealing with the people who are saving the movies all these times. Tom Holland. Come to Marvel. Come to Marvel. Come to MCU. Come to Disney. And get paid and fucking be a huge name.
And if they introduce, obviously they have to, like Human Torch and so on and so forth, they would have to make it the same age as him, the same age as Tom Holland, because they're like friends. Like the dynamic between there's a scene in the early Spider-Man where Spider-Man is like super, like Peter Parker is super down on himself, and Human Torch comes and gives a speech at his high school, because the Fantastic Fours are like heroes that everyone knows who they are. They're celebrities, and Peter Parker is sitting in this auditorium and he is like so moved by Human Torch's speech that he's like, oh, I gotta go be Spider-Man again. Like, it's really important that they make them the same age, because their dynamic is a lot. The Ultimate Universe, Johnny Storm like leaves the Fantastic Four and just goes to normal high school. It's great.
Oh, I'd like that. I mean, I love the family dynamic of like them picking each other up and stuff. That's part of the reason why I love Into the Spider-Verse so much, when they all like go to Miles' apartment and they talk to him, and it's just about the leap. You don't know when you take it or whatever. The next Robbie, two announcements. Oh, go ahead.
One last thing. You nailed it in your blog too. Like the casting for the Fantastic Four, as well as obviously Dr. Doom, who I am so excited for. I have there's a big gap in my soul right now that a beautiful purple man once held, and I need another villain to get me through this time, at least until Magneto comes in to fill it down the road. But the casting for the Fantastic Four is so goddamn huge as well. And you said Hank Schrader basically being Thing would be so good. He said, I'm a mineral, Murray. It would be,
I really would love that. The next two announcements go hand in hand. They're both slated for 2025, and it's two Avengers movies back to back. They're kind of repeating the Infinity War to Endgame formula. I assume they're going to shoot these back to back. It's first the Avengers, the Kang Dynasty, May 2nd, 2025, and then Avengers Secret Wars, November 7th, 2025. This is going to be, I can't imagine it being even smaller than Endgame. I imagine it's just going to grow and grow and grow and be bigger, more characters and stuff. I can't wait. I hope they don't repeat the Infinity War Endgame formula too much, where like you can't kill off all the characters in the first one and then like fight to bring him back in the second, right? You have to do something different.
Yeah. I don't know what the Kang Dynasty is going to be about. I would hope it's
be all the different Kangs fighting the Avengers. You think
that might be part of it, because Iron Lad would have to be introduced. The Time Variance Authority would have to be introduced. Time Variance Authority is like the Time Police.
Well, they've got that from Loki.
Okay, so like they would like, and Ravonna is like him and Ravonna go. Yeah. So it'd be like the Empire of Kang is huge. It's like it like spans multiverses. Like there are universes where Kang just rules the universe. Like that universe is just Kang's kingdom. So like he's like hyper powerful too. It would be interesting, especially if they introduce the X-Men, because there is this storyline where there's these individuals called the Apocalypse Twins, which are, part of Apocalypse, like the X-Men villain, because I brought up like Ramatut, who's like the Egyptian guy, like the Pharaoh guy that is actually Kang. Because he went back in time originally because he found out like Apocalypse is like the guy, like if you control Apocalypse back then, you basically control the world. So he goes back in time and tries to brainwash young Apocalypse. He does the same thing with the Apocalypse Twins, where I can't remember who their parents are. I think it's Archangel and another one of the four horsemen, because Archangel was originally Angel that was manipulated by Apocalypse to become Archangel. Two of them get together and they have twins, and Kang goes back in time and just takes them and just tries to like grow them, and then like Kang goes around like other universes and collects like this version of Doctor Doom, this version of Venom, this version of Strife, and then there's like Exitar the Celestial, who he has an axe that can damage Celestial, and he kills. I think he kills him. I can't remember if he kills him or just beats him, but he absorbs his energy and just gets what he wants. He gets control of time and space and everything. So that could be the big end goal. I have no idea. Because eventually Immortus, Adam Warlock, and the Infinity Watch come and defeat him. So it's like that could be the end. I have no idea what this movie could be about because there's like 1,000 Kangs.
And then obviously Secret Wars is just going to be insane.
Yeah, that's the one people have been asking for since the start.
Yeah, literally since the start of it all. Out of all of the announcements, which one are you most excited for?
Born Again, obviously. I think because Born Again's like I said, I think that could be the best arc ever. Blade, I don't think it'll be the best one, but like selfishly, like I just love the character, and I love supernatural Marvel stuff a lot. Like I said with Doctor Strange, Fantastic Four solely for Doctor Doom. As you see, I literally have a Doom tattoo on my arm. Secret Wars would be really interesting if they do it right, because obviously all the heroes are sucked to a battle world type thing by the Beyonder, and the Beyonder's power is like above Galactus. Like he is so powerful. Doom gets his and like Claw, who is Andy Serkis, if I remember correctly, and he is like a huge part of Secret War. He's like Doctor Doom's.
Really?
He's like He's Doctor Doom's lackey. He's like his little like court jest, because
you guys have to resurrect him or bring him in from a multiverse because they killed him off.
What you guys did for penance? Look up Claw in Secret Wars. He does not look like Andy Serkis. He looks like a goofy dude with like a megaphone for an arm. It's weird, man. He's made of pure sound. Andy Serkis was
great as him. I actually just rewatched Black Panther.
He was really good as a guy. He was really good as a guy called Claw. He didn't play Claw. It's weird, man, because he looks like he looks like a goofy guy because he's made of pure sound. So this is also
red. He looks like almost like the Crimson Chin from the Fairly Odd Parents.
Yeah, he's made of pure sound, so he can like rip his arm off and just like regrow it. He's goofy. He's very goofy.
Sound. Yeah. No,
So the Beyonder says Doom beats the Beyonder. He tricks him and gets his powers, and this is when Doom actually Doom becomes the ultimate bad guy. He fixes his face, he unmasks himself, and he basically just becomes the ruler of everything. And then Claw was accidentally being like used by Beyonder without his knowing to like come back and eventually take his power back. This is also when Spider-Woman is introduced, and there is a Robbie, I think I've told you this, I still have to let you borrow it. There is like a what if arc that I have where, because eventually Doom loses Beyonder's powers. There is a what if he doesn't lose Beyonder's powers and he also gets the Infinity Gauntlet and just takes over the universe and kills all the Celestials. It's crazy. It is a wild story. It is a wild arc. So Secret Wars would be interesting if they do it right. Obviously, the symbiote suit is introduced this way. It is interesting because, like I've said this a few times, like Captain Marvel is not Carol Danvers in the Secret Wars comic. It's Photon. It's the Black Woman. Roddy
She'll be in the new Marvels,
right?
The Marvels.
Roddy is it's Roddy is Iron Man, not War Machine. He is Iron Man in the gold and red suit. Wasp is obviously in it. Kang is in it. Lizard is in it. Doc Ock. All of Hulk's villains like the Absorbing Man and the Wrecking Crew and everyone. They're all in it.
That might be how to make it different than Endgame is. Instead of doing the killing people, bringing them back in the next one, just in Secret Wars, resurrect everyone we've ever seen in the MCU for like a scene. You know, like bring in Killmonger and bring in Tony for a scene, and
it would be interesting.
Iron Man shows up and then it flips up and it's like a hologram of him or something. You know, a failed suit.
It would be really interesting. Obviously, Molecule Man is like a huge. This is when Molecule
Wonder
Man
realizes is also rumored to get announced at D23. Wonder Man being, I believe he's an actor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So wow, that would be. Too. He dies of cancer.
Oh my God! Like, Marvel with the cancer.
But it's like interesting because he's like a superhero that dies of like a mortal.
Yeah, we've talked about him before.
He dies in bed surrounded by other Avengers, and like he slips into like his coma sleep, like he meets Thanos, and Thanos is like, "Welcome to Lady Death's realm," and then like Lady Death like ushers him away. It's like a beautiful scene.
Jeez, Clem, I assume you're most excited for Guardians 3.
So I had Guardians 3 1, and then Secret Invasion got bumped up after like the 7 blows in a row. That was number 5. I have that number 2. I like we said, Fantastic Four and the 2 Avengers movies, you can't like put those really.
Though you kind of don't even count those because, of course, those are the big ones. We're super excited for that.
That's like the dog walk where you couldn't draft Michael Jordan for Chicago athletes or Tony Soprano for the Sopranos. It's like that's the fucking that's it. But just based on Jose, like Daredevil got bumped up a bunch. Just based on that, Echo got bumped up a bunch. I mean, and there's really nothing. The stuff I was like the least excited about, Jose was the most excited about off the bat. And the only thing I don't understand is Secret Invasion and Secret Wars. Is it just a lot of scroll shit and that's what the whole secret thing is? Because I feel like it's the same thing but different, and I don't know what the fuck to think. I just said things that doesn't make sense, but that's where my brain is right now, Jose.
So like I said, there's a few Secret Wars. The original Secret Wars is the Beyonder, is like this omnipotent, like powerful entity that takes a group of heroes and a group of villains and takes them from Earth and just drops them on a planet and says, fight. Whoever wins gets something. Like that's that. Like so at this point too, like they don't pause the titles. So like when Captain America and Iron Man and everyone and Hulk are taken from the Avengers, like Vision is still on Earth and he kind of becomes a baddie and becomes a little evil, like too powerful. And Thing loses his ability, like he loses his rock and strength on this new world. He just loses his powers. So this is, I don't know if people are watching this, maybe they remember this, but there was a period of time where She-Hulk joins the Fantastic Four as she replaced Thing because Thing stayed behind when everyone went back to Earth because he wanted to be a human again.
Because he couldn't get rock hard.
Yeah, exactly. there were a lot of storylines came, like the black suit, She-Hulk being in Fantastic Four, Vision kind of going crazy. It was all really interesting. And Spider-Man was really great in Secret Wars. Kang dies like in issue 1. Like Dr. Doom kills him like right away because there's like a power dynamic between the two, like who's gonna lead, and Dr. Doom just kills him.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think at the top of my list right now, honestly, are Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, partially because it's so soon. And it's like, I know we're about to get that, especially with the possibility of some Doom stuff. And then Ant-Man 3, Quantumania. I'm ready for Kang. I've been hearing about this guy Kang for so long that I want to see him in action. I'm worried for Scott Lang a little bit. I heard in the trailer he's like a little too big for his britches. Like Scott Lang's podcast is taking off and he's becoming like a movie star and ignoring his family a little. So maybe he's got to be knocked down a few pegs, no pun intended. But
he does, get blown up in Avengers Disassembled. So he might not be. I don't want him to
get blown up, but Kang's gonna, give him a big wake up call in this movie.
I
just want to see Kang. I'm so ready for Jonathan Majors to like be in that suit. We got the little poster. I think Andy Park, their like lead concept artist, drew it. It's a badass poster. It looks like it could be a comic book cover, to be honest. So right now they're at the top of my list. As far as TV shows, I think Secret Invasion for me, because the cast, what Jose described, everything about that sounds awesome.
Yeah, if they do it right. I really hope if they do it, because like Secret Invasion was one of those arcs that involved all heroes. Every title was involved in Secret. It wasn't just like a secret underground like Nick Fury's searching for Skrulls. Like the big climactic battle was in Central Park. And it was all the heroes versus all of the Skrull heroes. And then that's when Norman Osborn took the kill shot with
I doubt they'll do that.
Queen Skrull. I doubt that too. Because this would be like the Skrull invasion the Skrull invasion from the comic books it was good enough to carry an entire phase. It really was. Yeah. But it's not intergalactic, so they're not going to use it.
Yeah. It feels like it's going to be some of the like maybe 30% of this phase or the next 2 phases. And then they got the multiverse stuff. And then they've got the ground level stuff with Cap and Spider-Man and Daredevil. Obviously, She-Hulk is a little more ground level. All right. I think we went through all the announcements. We went about 90 minutes. I actually predicted this, I was texting the Spin and Backfist guys trying to schedule today. And they were like, "How long do you think we'll go?" I said, "About 90 minutes." And look at that.
Yeah. Boom. Nailed it.
Right on the money. I'm like, who was that golfer that just put out the video? Him hitting shots, and he knew how the yardage of everyone.
Wow.
That was crazy. He was
That's why
like
you're a pro,
272, and then boom. Make sure you follow Jose at Jose Youngs. Make sure you follow me at Robbie Barstool, Clem at the Clem Report. Subscribe on YouTube. Like the video if you haven't already. Subscribe on iTunes, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts will be available. And we will be back next week. I don't know what we'll talk about next week. We don't really have Marvel things. I mean, we might have announcements by then. Kevin Feige's just firing shit off.
You guys should get ready for the Sandman Netflix show.
We're going to have to do a full Sandman episode. I have one of the issues up. Yeah, I got an issue up there. The first one.
That is the greatest single run of writer title ever. I'll just say that.
Yeah, and the trailer looks pretty sick too. Neil Gaiman.
I haven't seen. I have not seen a lot of the trailer. I am
going in blind,
bro. If there's anything involving the Sandman, I have absorbed it. I just want to go in blind. I saw one of the scenes and I was like, I'm going to cry. I can't watch.
If it's anything less than perfect, I feel like they're gonna break your heart though.
Oh,
they better nail this for Jose. I'll say that.
It would be like the Sandman to me. It would be like if they made a Netflix show and they like ruined Oasis for Robbie. Like it would be bad. Like I literally have the Sandman like tattooed hyper like death like super prominent on me. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Jose's a huge maybe the biggest Sandman guy of all time.
Maybe.
So definitely the biggest Sandman fan I know. All right, subscribe. We will see you next week, and it'll be a surprise episode, kind of a grab bag episode.